Well, I hope you've all had a pleasant lunch, but we're drawn here this afternoon for the Alumni Awards. It's been a great weekend so far. We started yesterday in this very room with a scholarship celebration. A huge number of the medical students were here, along with many of the scholarship donors. We've had a great series of events this morning, beginning with presentations from the 50-year class, and then we heard about some of the incredibly dramatic scientific advances that are happening at Penn and elsewhere. There'll be more of that later this afternoon. I'm going to interview Stan Prusner, who I think is sitting in the back. But let's focus now on 5 of our alumni who have certainly earned the recognition that they'll receive this afternoon. We've got 2 Young Alumni Awards, a Service Award, and Distinguished Graduate Award. And I'll mention that later this evening, we've got a Lifetime Achievement celebration that's going to be at the Logan Hotel downtown to recognize Gail Morrison, the Senior Vice Dean here, for I won't say exactly how long, but somewhere around 2 decades. So, Gail. So I'm going to give a very brief introduction to these awardees, and then they'll make a few remarks. And I just want to give you a little bit of the background about these awards. The Office of Alumni Development and Alumni Relations established the Young Alumni Service Award in recognition of combined exemplary success in medicine and purposeful service to the Penn Medicine Development and Alumni Relations Program. So this year we have 2 recipients. The first is Ravi Bashyal. He's a graduate from 2005. He continued to support Penn Medicine by participating in the host program and can be counted on to help organize class reunions and fund drives. Ravi's been a tremendous advocate for financial aid at the school. He's also dedicated and an enthusiastic supporter of charity organization Operation Walk Chicago, his hometown. This group provides free hip and knee replacement surgery to medically underserved patients in developing countries. He leads their efforts in Nepal Orthopedic Hospital in Kathmandu. In addition to performing numerous charity surgeries and organizing large service trips, he's been highly influential in advancing orthopedic capabilities and education in Nepal. Ravi's goal has been to develop self-sustaining hip and knee replacement in the orthopedic hospital in Nepal. And back here at home, he's a talented orthopedic surgeon specializing in minimally invasive hip and knee replacement. He currently serves as director of the outpatient hip and knee replacement surgery at North Shore University Hospital Health System in his native Chicago. He holds an academic appointment as clinical assistant professor of orthopedic surgery at the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine. Congratulations, Ravi. Please come up and say a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dean Jameson. I am honored to be recognized by my alma mater and accept this award with sincere gratitude and profound humility. I would especially like to extend my warm wishes to the family of my fellow Young Alumni Award honoree, Dr. Darryl Powell. I did not know Darryl personally, but everything I've heard about him from his friends, colleagues, and mentors reflects an exceptional man, a passionate patient advocate, and a most deserving recipient of this award. Our Penn family lost one of its best with Darryl's passing, but I'm so pleased to see that his spirit lives on through all those that he touched. As I thought about this award and what it represents and how I ended up being privileged enough to have received it, I realized that my life has been a series of good fortune. Lucky enough to have devoted parents who put my own education and aspirations ahead of their own dreams. Fortunate enough to have mentors and teachers that put me in positions to succeed. And blessed enough to have the good health to work on my ambitions. In fact, I would venture to say that almost all of us in this room have had more good fortune than bad to end up here. We have all worked hard and sacrificed to some extent, but more than anything, we have been lucky enough to take advantage of the good fortune with which we have been presented. My international work has really helped me understand the depths of good fortune by juxtaposing the dire straits that many must navigate simply to subsist and survive. And their difficulties are not a reflection of a lack of effort or ambition, but more a spiritually puzzling inequity of opportunity. One is struck when operating on a man who can't walk or work because his mud and brick hut collapsed on him during an earthquake. That he's not here under my knife because he didn't work hard enough or didn't care enough to make something else of himself. Instead, I learned that the world is a place of great disparity, and that the ability to make an impact or offer good fortune to others is an honor and privilege that is almost holy in its obligation. It's easy to get lost in the sheer magnitude of inequity that exists in the world, but it's critical to make some impact where you can. Now, not all examples are as dramatic as crippled villagers in faraway lands. The opportunity to create good fortune for others exists all around us. In fact, that is the reason that I am most proud to be a Penn Med alum. Penn Med created opportunities for me. More accurately, the people that are part of the Penn Med family sacrificed and cared enough to make these opportunities for me. This is the culture of our medical school, and in my opinion, its most important asset. As a first-generation child of middle-class immigrants, there is no way that I could have had access to the opportunities that Penn Med provided without robust financial support. Once I was here, there is no way that I could have thrived without mentors that guided me and classmates that became my family. This is the essence of our Penn Med culture. Penn Med is an institution that creates opportunity, and it does this in many ways: financial aid, dedicated teachers and administrators, exposure to world-class mentors. But to me, the most consistent way that this is carried on is by the people that come to school here. Compassion is our brand and our credo. Penn Med attracts students that want to be forces for positive change. We have, without a doubt, the best student climate and culture of any medical school in the country. I sincerely believe that. I've trained all over the country. I mentor students, residents at my own home facility, but I know that Penn Med was the only and best place for me. It's a perfect fit for great kids who want to help others. But not all of them can afford to be here or can succeed without mentorship and continued support. This was certainly true for me. And as somebody whose whole life was made by getting to Penn Med and understanding that this was only possible because of the compassion and generosity of others, I feel compelled to give back, not only to Penn, but to the world around me. I think that most Penn Med alumni are similarly driven, and it makes me so proud to be a part of this community. In conclusion, I would like to thank the committee for this great honor. I would also like to thank my family for their incredible support, specifically my parents for their unconditional love and sacrifice, and to my best good fortune, my wife, Neha, who is here with me today and continues to be my greatest source of support, inspiration, and love. I'm honored by this recognition and most proud to be a Penn Med alum. Thank you.
Dr. Bashyal, thank you so much for those eloquent remarks, for your values, your professionalism, and everything that you do to represent the field of medicine. You certainly represent Penn Medicine well, and we're grateful for that. We're going to send all of our medical students to interview with you to talk about the culture of this school. You've said it extraordinarily well. So our second Young Alumni Service Award is presented posthumously to Darryl J. Powell, Jr., a member of the University of Pennsylvania class of 2009 and a 2013 graduate at the Perelman School of Medicine. Darryl's passion for health equity was buoyed by his belief that everyone should have access to the care they need to live a healthier life. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Darryl led grassroots efforts in our local community to reach an underserved patient population. He frequented West Philadelphia barbershops to speak with patrons about the risks of high blood pressure. At Penn, he was a recipient of the prestigious Helen O. Dickens Prize and a vocal advocate for underrepresented minorities in medicine. He went on to be named chief resident while serving dual residencies in internal medicine and pediatrics at Brigham and Women's Hospital and Boston Children's Hospital. Darryl was a cherished member of our community, and many of us were distraught and distressed by his sudden and unexpected passing in April 2017 at the too young age of 30. His legacy endures at Penn not only through the lives he touched, but also through the Darryl J. Powell Memorial Fund that supports scholarly projects by Penn students that support the causes that Darryl championed. Here to accept today's award on behalf of Darryl's family, many of whom are here, is Zimbeana Powell, his mother. Mrs. Powell.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Jameson, and thank you, Dr. Bashyal, for the kind words that you spoke of Darryl. It is truly an honor and a privilege to accept this awesome award on behalf of my son, Darryl. My family and I have been tremendously touched by the love and support we have received from so many during our time of loss and beyond. Darryl's life had an indelible impact on so many lives, more than any of us could have imagined. He was full of wisdom, witty, and truly a compassionate young man with strong convictions. He was humble, gentle, and had patience with all through his love. He is sorely missed. Darryl loved Penn so much that he came back from med school. He's a double Quaker. He spent a lot of time here at the university, made some tremendous relationships that are long-lasting even now. Darryl deeply cared about his faith, his family, and his patients, and his friends, and truly let his light shine. He sought to bring change in so many ways by being an advocate for social justice, quality care for all, and as chief resident, ensuring those he led brought the human component of being physicians to the forefront when interacting with their patients. Colleagues and friends often refer to him as light and said that he encouraged them to stay woke about these things. We are grateful that his legacy continues through so many people who will bring about change and the memorial funds established in his memory, both here and at Brigham. Darryl lived life to the full. He traveled. He went so many places. Even as a young teenager, he went on a mission trip to Uganda. He always cared deeply for people. It saddens me that his life was unexpectedly cut short, which we would think. But Darryl lived such a life that his impact and the way that he treated people and loved and lived far surpasses people who reach 80s, 90s. I am so proud of him. We are so proud of him, and we just thank this lovely institution for remembering him. And we thank his friends, some of which are here, to help us celebrate this awesome award. Thank you, Dr. Morrison, for that phone call. It warmed my heart. And I could see the compassion and just you being a mother at the time when I really needed another mother's understanding. Thank you. As I was thinking of how I could sum up the way Darryl lived, the words to the following song of old came to mind. If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can share somebody with a word or a song, if I can show somebody that he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian ought, if I can bring back beauty to a world upwrought, if I could spread love's message that the Master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. So let's all ask ourselves, what am I doing to ensure that my living will not be in vain? Be that light. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, Mrs. Powell, thank you for those lovely remarks, and thank you for sharing Darryl with us here at Penn. It's just a reminder of why this is such a well-deserved award in recognition of his values and everything that he did with his classmates and with his patients. And I can only imagine when he was in Boston serving as chief resident, how many people he helped share his knowledge and his values. Had a huge impact. So I'd now like to turn to the Alumni Service Award. This honors the recipient's generous, loyal, energetic commitment to the Perelman School of Medicine and to our development and alumni relations programs. Honorees are selected annually by the nominating subcommittee of the Medical Alumni Advisory Council. This year's Alumni Service Award recipient is Robert J. Laskowski, College of 74, Medicine 78, Wharton 83, a triple graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Laskowski is an active member of the class of 1978 with a big turnout this year and is currently serving on its 40th reunion committee. He helped to create the class of 1978 scholarship fund. He was a guest speaker at the Penn Medicine AAMC alumni reception in 2015. He served on the host committee for a Penn Medicine AAMC alumni reception in Boston. He served as a keynote speaker at Penn Health X's inaugural annual conference in 2016, and that organization is thriving. Professionally, he's a physician and health services researcher whose career contributions have improved the quality of healthcare delivery across the country. He retired in 2014 as president and CEO of the Christiana Care Health System in Delaware, one of the nation's largest healthcare systems. While there, he founded the Christiana Care Value Institute, an applied research group dedicated to the best practices in healthcare quality, safety, and health delivery science. He held academic appointments at Thomas Jefferson University and the University of Delaware, and is past chair of the board of the AAMC, a truly prestigious position where he had enormous impact. Bob, I welcome you to the podium.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jameson, and thank you to the selection committee. This is it's certainly an unexpected honor to be up here, and I know so many alumni who have done and are doing a great deal, so funny for me to be here, and a big shout out to my classmates there. Any one of you guys could be up here. I'm also very delighted to be in the company of such wonderful honorees. So Drs. Besser, Rickels, Bale, Dr. Morrison, Lifetime Achievement Award, and in particular, I'm honored to be in the same program which celebrates Dr. Powell's memory and his contributions. Penn Medicine was a very special place for me, and it remains very special. Each time I come to campus, I'm energized and inspired and frankly feel a bit challenged. These are the same feelings I had when I was a student here and when I was a fellow as well. Reunions and alumni events are always times for reflection, and it certainly is for me. This reflection, though, is not simply one of nostalgia, but rather more for me a feeling of, as I'm sure it is for you, a feeling of reaffirmation. It helps me to remember why I chose the path that I did and how the wonderful people I met at Penn helped me to do my best to try to be helpful to others. Events like this are really about culture. About the shared beliefs and values and expectations of behavior that form a culture. The Perelman School of Medicine has a very, very rich culture, one that's easy to recognize. And actually, through the years, I always kind of prided myself, when I see a Penn person, I know them right away. The culture is apparent, as we've heard from other colleagues as they spoke today. So last night, I asked my wife, Kathy, sitting right over here, her top-of-the-mind thoughts about the culture of Penn when I attended school here. And we were just newly married at the time. So she replied right away. She said a few words, and I'll just share those with you. Support, eagerness, collegiality. Again, a shout out to my colleagues in the class of '78. A passion, not simply to learn, but to learn how to help others. That's what she saw as the spouse of a medical student. And that's what I experienced with my colleagues. Now, I'd add a couple of adjectives of my own, and the first one's excellence. Penn, no room for mediocrity. Excellence was the norm, and it was certainly expected of us as Penn students, and that excellence was expected, but we expected it more importantly from ourselves. Innovation. It became clear to me as I entered Penn that Penn was a place where medicine was practiced and taught extraordinarily well, but it was also a place where medicine was literally invented, true to this day. And then leadership. Now this leadership is a little more nuanced, and it's not the positional leadership, CEOs, those type of things. It's actually more substantive, I think, in the willingness and the sense of responsibility to ask questions, critical questions that challenge conventional wisdom, and to speak up for the truth and to live that truth. That's leadership. Now, these attributes, they continue today, and give you one example, actually, of the leadership. And I think, Dr. Jameson, I mentioned this story to you. Last year, I had the honor of giving a talk here at this wonderful, wonderful facility, and to a group of Penn medical students. And in my lecture, I used some paintings as props. The famous Agnew Clinic by Akins, and I used to walk under that, by the way, every day, in the old medical school building. That was pretty cool. I didn't realize how famous that was at the time. That's part of the culture. I also use the iconic painting that everyone knows, probably the Luke Fildes, the physician painting. And then a couple of slides. I wanted to talk about contemporary things, doctors rounding and things of that nature. So I picked a couple of photos off of the internet and put them into the talk. So one of the Penn medical students was in the audience there and raised her hand from the back of the auditorium. And she asked me, said, well, Dr. Laskowski, very nice talk there, doctor, but here's those examples that you gave here, I didn't notice any women in the paintings there, okay? And not only that, but the photos that you used, the women were not in a position of leadership. Could you explain your choice? Okay, well, that was a good question. Being a well-trained Penn person, I learned to think very quickly, and so I responded. I said, okay, here's the thing, the past traditions of medicine, sadly, often did not include women, and so the Akins and Fildes paintings, no women there. The more current internet photos, that was more of a problem for me there. And I told the truth. I always tried to do that, and that was, well, I just looked around for the first thing I could find. They look good to me, and so what you're seeing is an example of unconscious bias. So that was, and I thanked her and for pointing that out to me and told her I'm not doing that ever again. I'm done with that. We'll get better photos. That's the leadership that you learn at Penn as a kind of part and parcel of the culture. The courage to ask a question, to ask a pointed question in the context of important issues in society. So not only did that demonstrate leadership by that student, I'm sorry I forgot her name, but it taught me an important lesson as well, and that's what leadership does. That's a critical part of the Penn culture. Now, just a few more words. Cultures are, they're not accidental, okay? They sometimes can be not intentional or in the sense that they're not conscious, but they're never accidental. They're always the result of shared beliefs and values and behavioral norms that you see every day going on, and that's why they're so apparent when you visit an organization. Now leaders, good leaders will know this and realize that actually the most fundamental work of any leader, especially in formal positions, is that formation and nurturing of culture. Now here at Penn, we're blessed by fabulous leadership. You know, we have Dean Jameson, who I've had the pleasure of working with over the years, and who enables colleagues to build on the great Penn traditions of education that date back to the very founding, actually precede the founding of the country. Dr. Morrison, for all that she's done to nurture and build on that tradition of the past. So I want to thank you both for what you've done for us. And now to the rest of us, it's not simply the work of formal leaders, this nurturing of culture. Rather, it's, I believe, the work of all of us who have been part of that culture and the beneficiaries of it. That we, all of us, alumni, all Penn people who have benefited from Penn's rich culture of leadership, of service, of compassion and innovation, we have a responsibility to help to carry these values to the future, both here at Penn and in whatever we do and wherever we do it. This is the reaffirmation that speaks to me in being here with my old friends from medical school days and with all the wonderful colleagues that some of whom I got to know today. So I want to thank you for this great honor and wish you well. Thank you.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for your service, and we're delighted that you come here to reaffirm some of your commitment that you began as a medical student. You've modeled leadership at Christiana, at the AAMC, and other organizations, and thank you for sharing those ideas with us. So we now turn to two distinguished graduate awards. These were established in 1982, and they honor highly accomplished alumni for outstanding service to society and to the profession of medicine. Notable accomplishments in either biomedical research, clinical practice, or medical education. Achievements that have resulted in national or international recognition. Honorees are selected by a panel that includes the Hospital of University of Pennsylvania chairs and a select group of the Medical Alumni Advisory Council members. This year we have two distinguished graduate award recipients. The first to be awarded is Richard Besser, the class of '86. There's a great deal of Penn pride in the Besser family. Dr. Besser's father, who is here with us today, and grandfather are both graduates of this school from the classes of 1954 and 1919, respectively. If you seem to recognize Dr. Besser, it's quite possible that you do. He served as ABC News Chief Health and Medical Editor, reporting across all ABC News programs and platforms. Today, he is President and CEO of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. This is the largest private foundation in the country devoted solely to improving the nation's health. He served as the former acting director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. His CDC tenure began in 1991, working on the epidemiology of foodborne illness. After serving 5 years on the faculty of the University of California, San Diego, he returned to the CDC as an infectious disease epidemiologist. As acting director, he led the CDC's response to the H1N1 influenza pandemic. He's currently professor of pediatrics at Columbia University and a distinguished visiting fellow at the Harvard School of Public Health. His first book, Tell Me the Truth, Doctor, easy to understand answers to your most confusing and critical health questions, deciphers fact from fiction for nearly 70 medical questions. So I'm sure all of us can go to him after this lunch. Richard, congratulations on being named a Distinguished Graduate Awardee, and I welcome you to the podium.
Well, thanks very much, Dean Jameson. I'm honored to receive this award. First, I want to thank my wife, who's sitting at the first table, for her support over the years, for all the sacrifices she made so that I could do the cool stuff I got to do. And then to my parents for the values that they instilled in me, which have been my guideposts. So as Dean Jameson said, Penn is in my blood. 100 years ago this year, my grandfather was a medical student at Penn, and the great flu pandemic hit. And the medical students at Penn were pulled into the wards to take over when doctors were out ill. And he would tell me stories of what it was like being a medical student on the flu wards when there wasn't that much he could do. He then went on to practice medicine in Philadelphia. He was a neighborhood doctor. His office was in the basement of their walk-up, and he was the doctor for his neighbors. 65 years ago, my dad was a med student here, different era, and then went on to practice in one community in Princeton for 50 years. My wife and I now live there, and as I go into stores, people will say, "Hey, you know, your dad delivered me." And I said, "Yeah, he delivered me too." Again, a different type of practice. So I came to Penn, graduated in '86, and then went on to Hopkins to study under Frank Oski, who was another Penn alum. When I was his chief resident, he was awarded a Distinguished Graduate Award from Penn. But what Frank instilled in me was an idea that while clinical practice is really the bedrock of medicine, there's so much more that you can do with medicine. And it really opened my eyes to different things and the possibilities of medicine. And it led me to go into public health, it led me to go into journalism, into research, and into teaching, and now into philanthropy. And at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, what I'm learning is that if we really want to have a profound impact on the lives of our patients, those of us in healthcare have to learn to work outside the field of healthcare with other disciplines and connect and understand how poverty and housing and transportation and community development and racism all contribute to the opportunities or the roadblocks for health. So on behalf of 3 generations of Bessers, I thank you very much for this award, for this recognition, and for what the school has done for all of us. Thank you.
Well, Richard, it's terrific to see the impact you've had by communicating through the media and your books, your work through the CDC, and now with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It's really an enormous impact. So our next recipient, the second recipient of the Distinguished Graduate Award, is Karl Rickels, a fellow at Penn in 1957. Dr. Rickels currently serves as the Stuart and Emily Mudd Professor of Human Behavior and Professor of Psychiatry at the Perelman School of Medicine. He's an internationally recognized expert in psychopharmacology with a particular interest in anxiety disorders. He received his medical training in Germany and completed his psychiatric training at HUP in 1957. And he's written a book about the journey between those two comments, medical school and HUP, which I encourage all of you to read. He became a pillar in the Department of Psychiatry and has served as the former chief of the Mood and Anxiety Disorder section within the department. He's a prolific researcher. He's authored or co-authored 10 books, and he's published more than 600 scientific publications, chapters, and reviews. His clinical research related to anxiety disorders has been supported by the National Institute of Mental Health for 50 years. Dr. Rickels has been the recipient of many prestigious honors and accolades, including being named as a Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association, the National Institute of Health Merit Award, a Pioneer in Psychopharmacology Award from the International College of Neuropsychopharmacology, and today he adds Distinguished Graduate Award to that growing list. Congratulations, Dr. Rickels.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about being here today and being recognized. I realize if you live long enough, you might get an award. And I'm 93 now. So I want to thank you, and I just want to share a few things with me, which really, I think, is an example of how Penn supports, stimulates, and grows young people who come here. I came to Penn in 1957 for my, finished in 1957 my residency, and I was deeply indebted to Kenneth Apple, who was the chair at that time. He practiced at the Institute and was probably the second full-time chair that we had in Penn. At this time, psychiatry in Penn was primarily on what we call the functional clinic. I didn't call it psychiatric clinic. It was the functional clinic at the 9th floor at Hub building. I am deeply indebted for Dr. Apple for two things. Number one, he afforded me, a German immigrant, the opportunity to train at Penn in psychiatry, but also he encouraged me to pursue the development of novel research after I was finished. He told me, Karl, I get you a start for 2 years, I pay your salary. After 2 years, you are on your own. And it worked out. He gave me support for 2 years, and after this, by 1960, I had established, I think, one of the first mood and anxiety disorder sections and units in the country, and dedicated to the development of anxiolytic and antidepressant medication. Now remember, this was in the late 50s, and psychopharmacology was a very, very new field. And so I was lucky in a sense to be there, but my mentor encouraged me. I talked to him and I said, Dr. Apple, should I go to psychoanalysis? He said, Karl, you shouldn't go to psychoanalysis. You should go into this new science of medicine, namely psychopharmacology. And if you do this, you will become famous and you'll become rich. That was a good advice. Now, Penn's unique environment also allowed me to expand my research with the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, so not related to psychopharmacology. And this collaboration contributed seminal work in spanning from the psychology of infertility to teenage pregnancy and to the diagnosis and treatment of premenstrual syndrome. Since this time, I had a wonderful person with me to develop this unit. This was Dr. Alan Freeman, who joined me as a postdoc, but soon became an independent NIH investigator and my program director. And she was probably, I really enjoyed nurturing faculty. If I have one thing that I really enjoyed beside my research, is just to have young people and stimulate. Dr. Freeman is one of them. She is now retired. She, for many years, was considered the world-known expert on premenstrual syndrome. We did the most important papers on this area in many different directions. And so she was really one of the persons that I was very much excited about. And this reminds me that there was one other person. I heard my former speaker said, well, there are not many women that we support. Well, for some reason, my most favorite mentees, they were all women. So I, for some reason, enjoyed working with women and not only with men. The second one was also a woman, Dr. Morin. She graduated from the fellowship at Penn. She did a fellowship in pediatric psychiatry at CHOP, and she worked with me for about 10 years, at first the K Award, then other awards, and she was my program director. Well, recently, just about a year ago, she was appointed as chair of psychiatry at Duke. So I feel pretty good of being able, having to help people to grow up in the Penn environment. On a more personal note, I could have spent most of my adult life at a better place than Penn. It was really stimulating, encouraging, but more important, it gave you freedom. If I wanted to go to a scientific meeting in Beijing, I didn't have to ask someone. I just went. In fact, at that time, someone offered me a very high position in a pharmaceutical company. And he said, well, if I want to go tomorrow to Berlin, can I do this? No. No, you might go to many other places, but you go when I tell you to. I said, no, thank you. so I never followed this up. Now, I had many wonderful colleagues and friends at Penn, and in fact, three of them, Dr. Rickels, Dr. Wade Berrettini, and Dr. Dwight Evans, the former chair, are all holders of chairs that I had established in that time. In fact, why did I do this? Well, my father told me, son, if someone helps you, furthers you, and develops you, don't only take, give something back again. And that's why I decided in my later period of time. Well, let me just find this here. As I'm getting older, so I'm getting a little bit confused. Last but not least, I had the chance to collaborate with my son, Michael. He is here today in endocrinology in some of his research projects. In fact, I just received the galley proof of one of our most recent papers. And for me, as I got older, I love to work with younger people. And it's just, and I feel that I still could contribute something. Where does it come from? From Penn. Penn started from the beginning to encourage, to develop and support the development, new ideas, and they didn't force you into some of the old things. So if I have to close this, I would say that it was an exciting time, and I still, at my age, learn when I'm in Penn, right now, from my son, Michael. In closing, I'm particularly happy that today my three sons, Larry, Steve, and Michael, and my daughter-in-law, Alyssa, who in fact is a graduate of the School of Social Work of Penn, shared me today. Thank you very much.
Dr. Rickels, thanks so much. We're delighted that your family could come and join you for this well-deserved recognition. And I also want to repeat some of what you mentioned about Dr. Mike Rickels' contributions in the field of endocrinology and pancreatic islet transplants. Very innovative work, a chip off the block. And I know you've made so many contributions, and the legacy will continue with the connections to Penn. What I didn't mention is that Dr. Rickels has also contributed 3 chair professorships in the Department of Psychiatry. So well above and beyond the scholarly and mentoring contributions. So I want to thank the committee that selects these awardees. The good news is they've got a rich talent base to work from, just an amazing group of graduates of this school. The bad news is we can't recognize all of the deserving people, but we'll be back next year. And I'll just remind you that we've got a terrific series of afternoon events. So get up and walk around and look at some of the educational facilities to get the blood flowing, and then I look forward to seeing many of you this afternoon. And I want to thank all of our alumni for taking time to come back and reconnect to Penn and the Perelman School of Medicine.